Welcome to the acclaimed podcast, The Deep Dive, featuring your esteemed hosts, Andy Monitor and Drew Dinzik, powered by BetSperts.
Welcome to The Deep Dive. We get to round out the AFC East today, Andy. And the AFC East, we generated a little bit of buzz on the old Twitter.com. People are listening. I also always love a little back and forth debate about that stuff. And I won't lie and say that I didn't have a little kind of not regrets, but like I wish I had couched things a little differently about the Patriots when we were talking about them, because it's, a lot of the criticism of the way they're handling the franchise is kind of weak. And most of my feelings about it were just they're not giving us clear signals. They're not telling us what they think. And the first team we're going to talk about today is the opposite of that. It is the Miami Dolphins. And oh boy, what an offseason. Oh boy, we could spend way too much time talking about this team if we're not being careful. And but this is a team that had enormous amounts of draft capital last couple of years. They got their rookie quarterback, and they did put their chips on the table. And I don't think this was necessarily an endorsement from everyone involved, but it sure felt like what happened with the coaching staff, the dissolution of the Flores and Stephen Ross, relationship, or the just in general Flores finding himself on the outs, I do think could be traced back to maybe he wasn't entirely bought in on the Tua regime, and for those reasons, he is no longer the head coach of Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, it says Dolphins 21 recap, and we're going to do that, but I don't want to spend much time on it because there's too much to talk about going forward, and recapping last year often isn't super helpful, although it is helpful to remember that they had massive losing and winning streaks. It was weird. We missed Tua for a good chunk of the season. We had that winning streak and did not save jobs because you're probably right, and I do agree on that. I don't think Flores meshed with the ideals of the front office. I'm not even going to get into the lawsuits and all the stuff that was said after that, because that's not going to help you understand who the Dolphins are this year and bet on them. I have opinions on that, but I don't think any of them are probably founded on fact. I just kind of know how things work between people when they start using legal, means to an end, when they start using litigation. Although I do think Flores is a good coach. I think hopefully this doesn't just, kind of put a mark on him and stop him from, it will. It sucks to say, like, it will for sure. It's not great. Like, hey, I can't remember now I'm saying we're not spending much on 21 and I'm going off on a tangent. I cannot remember what job this was, but I interviewed somebody and they mentioned in their interview that they what were you doing for this period of time where you weren't working? Like, oh, that was like I had a really good workers' comp claim against my old employer and I was just getting a lot of money, so I didn't need to work. I'm like, well, it was a pleasure meeting you, and we are going to be in touch. Like, it's just one of those things where it's like, oh, I can't hire you if you said that. Like, I can't say that to you. But either way, I do hope Flores lands on his feet. I like him as a coach, but I'm happy where they ended up in 2022 for the most part. I think the most part includes 21 players on the field. And we'll get into the one that matters. Again, this is very Patriots-esque, I think, as far as describing, what's going to make the straw that stirs the drink here is the biggest issue. And I don't know, do you have anything else to say on 21 outside of you dig a hole like that? I don't think you're going to get out of it a lot of times. They almost did, which was amazing. They were in the mix in the last few weeks to make the playoffs. They beat the Patriots twice. They had some nice wins, albeit a lot of those wins ended up being against kind of bad teams, bad quarterbacks. So
yeah, no doubt.
Little grain of salt.
I think you take the entire
at least a
schedule,
couple grains.
Big old couple of huge dashes of salt. They didn't beat all the bad teams on their schedule. They lost to the Jaguars and the Falcons. They got absolutely thumped by the Bills and the Buccaneers early in the season. So things were not going well out of the gate for this franchise at all. And I mean, maybe Flores was a little bit on the hot seat as they kind of got to their middle of their season and they were 1-7. But I guess my major takeaways of the Flores era, I thought he was a good coach. I thought he achieved more with what he was given than an average coach would have, and I thought it was not a deserved firing from a guy who could ultimately succeed at the NFL level as a head coach. And I thought his biggest skill was his ability to develop some of the players that they drafted, because they drafted and they reached a lot in the draft the last 2 years. But I thought Flores did a nice job of taking guys who were really, really poor at the beginning of the season and getting really decent to solid play from them towards the end of the season. And I think a lot of the, any other team with any other quarterback that had this type of success down the stretch, you're talking, they're a buzz team heading into this season. And, particularly on the back of what we're just saying, which is that they developed some of their young talent. And like you developing that talent, they should all take a meaningful step forward, presumably, although you're going to be in a new system. And I think realistically, it was, it was the major question at the heart of this franchise, which is, can you, build a playoff/championship contender around Tua that caused excuse me, the dissolution, because apparently Ross and Greer weren't happy with the way that was handled, and there's been rumors that in the offseason they were looking at major moves, with the smoke around the Tom Brady retirement. But it was not to be, and now they enter the season instead, having put their chips on the table, and they're going to learn one way or the other whether Tua is a guy that can get it done. He's in his third year. He is on a cost-controlled contract, and for those reasons, it makes perfect sense for them to take this approach, because if they are right, then they are competing, then they have a seat at the table. They have a chip in a chair. And if they are wrong, then they know they need to pivot before he gets to the question of, are we, extending this guy? And in the exact same way that we kind of have talked about other quarterbacks who were not given the tools and the, like think about Justin Fields. Like, what kind of headache are the Bears going to have evaluating Fields one way or the other, unless he really succeeds with nothing, in which case he's your guy. But like, if he's not, how do you divorce it from
he's
supporting
full on
cast?
Schrodinger's quarterback. Like he's like, well, he's good or bad. He's good and bad. We don't know, but yeah, like you're right. The only way you can actually come to the end of the year and say Justin Fields is this definitively is if he performs so well that the Bears do good, despite him not getting any help at receiver, offensive line, and even then, I think a lot of it, the lauding will go to the coaching staff. But yeah,
Sure.
I don't know. Like, heading into 2022, I think we'll come back at the very end and touch again on the defense. Like, the defense was good. The defense will be good. They kept their guy, or what was it, a renegotiation or re-signing with Ogba?
I don't recall.
Yeah, either way, like they're going to have a good pass rush. They added Melvin Ingram. Like, the pass rush is going to be good. The defense is going to be fine. I don't think that's a big question mark. Like, we know what this defense is. There's not a lot to talk about on that side of the ball. Like, they should be kind of slotted into the area they're slotted into by most of the market rankings, and it should be where they were last year, if not better. The offense is the big thing, and we were going to do a little bit of back and forth, and I think everything you want to talk about on offense will be like a tree, like a chart, a flow chart off of Tua, because we're both not really bought in on Tua being the long-term answer. So I texted Drew today. I said, hey, you're out on Tua, right? And you gave me your percentages, and I said, yeah, it's about where I'm at. But instead of agreeing all the time, I said, we'll do like debate class in high school where you have to take a position you might not like. You have to defend a position. And I said, I will be pro Tua on this podcast. So I want you
Okay.
to know I'm looking at you guys.
God, yeah.
Maybe I'll convince myself after this. And truthfully, when I did some research, it's funny. I wonder how much this happens with debate classes and stuff, where you sit and research your topic that you have to defend and you actually convince yourself a little. Because there were some things that made me think I need to at least adjust my percentages. And I think I love how you frame that. And I've started to do that a lot as well. Of all the things I've learned from you, that's one of my favorites. And it's not even really
Just make a fake market.
well, yeah, it's not even really a thing that, you use. It's more in something we do in content where you say, here's the outcomes and here's my percentages for it. I think that's just a great way to explain where you're at. And I'm not going to flip and say like, I'm pro Tua now, but I've adjusted my percentages up
Ooh.
for
Would you believe
Tua-
that I am in
Tua
the same
16.
boat in prepping for this podcast?
Damn
I'm
it.
in the same boat.
I said, hey, we agreed
I
too
was going to
much, so we're
even
gonna
pitch it to
debate.
you. Maybe we should switch hats, but I figured you already did all your prep, so we should just stay where we're
I mean,
at.
I've done prep for both sides. Should we flip? Should we do an alternate ending?
No.
We'll do a
No
3-hour
double.
one.
No. Just we'll stick to our sides in our debates.
All right,
and I'll start. I'll start.
Let's debate Tua. So you
Okay.
bring up Tua negative, and I'm going to counter it with a Tua positive.
Okay. On film, his ball is poor. It
I need
doesn't
more
have
descriptiveness than that.
it
Like,
doesn't have
all of his
velocity
balls?
since his hip injury. For whatever it's worth, his mechanics don't look as good as they looked in college, and I am not sure that that's a fixable problem at this point. Maybe he does get stronger and he does develop the same velocity that he had at one point in his arc, but it does not look there like it is there now. And for that reason, the idea of him being able to complete deep passes, the idea for him to be able to take the top off the defense really at all, is still a complete unproven quantity. He has not proven whatsoever that the defense needs to respect the deep ball. And when you look at the talent that they even had in the last couple of seasons, that shouldn't have been a problem for him to at least show you enough glimmer of hope that he can do that's a weapon in his tool chest. And yet here we sit and it's not. We talked about 2 years ago or a year ago prepping for the Dolphins that it was a really bad sign that the Dolphins and the locker room kind of all wanted Fitzpatrick in there in the high leverage moments. Like, that's not good. And Fitzpatrick being able to kind of magic his way to wins when Tua was unable to complete anything except for kind of high probability stuff over the middle, high completion percentage stuff over the middle of the field, is a red flag. And I think to really kind of reach the upper echelons of quarterback play in today's NFL, you don't need to consistently be able to take the top off the defense, but you sure as heck need the 11 to 20 yard pass down the sidelines in your arsenal. And with Tua's current velocity, that does not appear to be in his arsenal. And additions of talent in the receiving core and just in general improvements across the offensive line aren't going to fix that.
Yeah, I mean, you did the whole debate in one thing. I thought it was going to be a quick point, but I know. I mean, to be fair, that's a tough one. You hit me with a hard one to begin with. Like, fixing mechanics doesn't happen as often as it happening is much more rare. Like, we're going to reference Josh Allen for the rest of his life, fixing his accuracy.
Sure.
Fixing a throwing motion does happen. You see some guys that come out of college with a big old windup that starts at their hip, and they're able to, work some of that out of it. I really think coaching is going to, it does come down to the player. Like we said with Josh Allen, like you need a special player who's willing to work and the coaching around it. I'm not going to come in and say like, hey, they got Darrell Bevel as your quarterback's coach. That's what's going to fix this. Like, and again, they kept pretty much a lot of the same guys around. Frank Smith came over from the Chargers. He was a part of their offensive scheme last year, and he is now their offensive coordinator. I don't know if it's going to be, it is going to be one of those things where he's the offensive coordinator. He helps with the the scheming and the game planning, but it is Mike McDaniel. That's your offense. So I'm going to throw Frank Smith, Eric Studesville, and Daryl Bevel out the window. Maybe Wes Welker's a nice coach. Who knows? I think Wes Welker actually is a nice little addition to any coaching staff. He's a smart
got
guy.
his bell rung a little too much in the pros for me to love him as a coach, but that's okay.
We'll find out. We'll find out how much CTE has truly, but I think the answer to this is, and maybe this is the unanswerable one, unrefutable one, is you can't get that out of it. Is it has to be coached out by McDaniel, and I think he knows. McDaniel knows, like, and maybe this is a case where I'm willing to concede the point right off the bat. But I think McDaniel is in a position where he knows, like, I'm going to do everything I can to make this Tua thing work. And if it's not working, I think he probably has the leeway to tell the coach or tell, the GMs, tell management, like, this just isn't going to be a thing. This wasn't my guy. I tried, we're doing everything we can, and it's just never going to work out. We need to look in a different direction. And I think he's going to be, you don't want to be 2 games about that, but I think he's going to be quick enough. So the answer is yes. If the coaching can work on his mechanics, I don't think the deep ball is ever going to be there. As far as, working his way back from the injury, you just have one more year of the offseason to continue to rehab that. If that gets better, it gets better. And then, again, counterpoint would be if the offensive line is going to be better. You don't have a cohesive unit until you get the middle of the season, but they added some nice pieces. They added a couple of pretty good pieces to the offensive line. And if he can be a little better protected, we're going to see better form. You see a lot of, like, the things that the ultra stars do, like the things that Mahomes does. Again, we reference Josh Allen as, like, no one's going to take that big of a step forward in 1 year ever.
Yeah.
Like the things that Patrick Mahomes does, we're going to say, like, hey, no one's going to be able to do that sort of stuff because no one can. That's just magic, like he does something magical, like throwing that far on the run, sidearmed off your back foot with your eyes closed. Like, that's just not something I expect from anyone, much less Tua. So I'm not expecting Tua to become this prolific deep ball passer. But if you watch him, he's so much better when he's not scrambling. Like, if he has time and he can plant his feet, his mechanics look way better. And that is the true counterpoint to the mechanics. Okay. Like, his mechanics are garbage, but it's because he was he's under duress. He didn't have a good game plan. I think that the scheming for the offense was bad. It put him in bad positions. If he's protected, has time, his mechanics aren't super bad. And I think that's just something to build off of. So if the offensive line, if these pieces they brought in are a big help to, what we're going to do here with, Teron Armstead, and then Connor Williams at center, you add that sort of, I don't know, the 2 of the 5 pieces probably greatly improved at that point. You get him some protection. He doesn't have to be throwing out of bad positions, rolling against the grain, scrambling, running, throwing off the back foot. If he can plant and use his whole body, all the right mechanics, it's not horrible.
I'm surprised you didn't go with the low-hanging fruit rebuttal, which is, of course, he looks bad on film. He's a lefty. That definitely impacts. That impacts
lefties in general. Like,
they don't look. It doesn't look.
It looks ugly. It looks wrong on film.
But no,
left-handed golfers, fine. Left-handed pitchers, whatever.
Those are all fair points. Mike McDaniel comes from a system that succeeded in multiple successive years with Jimmy G as a guy who also didn't have these throws that we're talking about. And if your system is more reliant on just getting a high accuracy guy to deliver a football, that worked for Drew Brees for a lot of years. Like, this isn't, there's plenty of anecdotes that you could point to. By the way, like, this is his 3rd year, and he was coming off of a pretty significant injury in year 1.
Ripped his hip apart.
So
and then just real quick to expound on what I said about Mike McDaniel, because I think that's the keystone to this whole argument is because you kind of brought it up, what they did with Jimmy G. Like, Jimmy G wasn't bombing. They had players that were, you were using Kittle in certain ways, and you're using once they got Ayuk there, and all these players, they were heavily reliant on just. It wasn't truly like Alex Smith dink and dunk, but it wasn't not that. It was a lot of short
Yeah.
stuff with yards after the catch.
Yeah.
Get a player with the ball in his hands and let him do stuff because Kittle was amazing. There were some other guys. I mean, named like 9 different running backs over the years that were pretty good with the ball in their hands in space.
Mhm.
And that would be you hear that argument too with like why instantly Tyreek is, garnering on Twitter the Ferrari or whatever car it is in the, the trailer park garage when he got signed to the Dolphins, which I get it. That's the perfect meme to use there. But like go think about some of the plays where you've really seen Tyreek make things happen. It's not
Yeah.
just him streaking 75 yards down the field. Like you put him in a bubble screen.
His game-breaking plays against the Bills in the playoffs last year.
Yeah, exactly. There was some short stuff where it's just like, oh no, like if he doesn't get tackled in the first 3 steps after he catches a short ball, he's already going 22 miles an hour, and you're going to have problems with linebackers who are trying to change direction and catch up with him. They're not going to. And at that point, you better hope the safety's 20 yards downfield so he can have some sort of angle. Even then, you might be screwed. So I really, I feel like the round hole square peg thing is just, it's so simple, but so many NFL offenses, defenses, coaches get it wrong where it's like, hey, we have to fix this. He has to throw it deep. It's just like, he might never be good at that. Like,
no doubt.
Why would you waste a down on that if it's like, hey, he's really shitty at throwing it deep. Let's not throw it deep then. Teams might know we're not going to do that much. And that's fine because those downs are wasted downs or potential turnovers. And I'm fine with a little less predictability in exchange for that.
So basically what we're saying is you have to reset your archetype that you're evaluating Tua under. He's never going to be Josh Herbert. He's never going to be Josh Allen. I mean, Justin Herbert, Josh Allen, or
like Josh Herbert. That's like a combination.
He'll never be any of those guys. He doesn't have the deep ball. He doesn't have the sideline pass, but maybe that's fine. And what was actually like kind of eye-opening and felt super fucking perfect when I kind of got to this point, looking at comparisons of the quarterback stats that I use to basically just come up with like, the stats bomb type of this is the guy, this is what this guy's. The Tua arc so far in his career, it's like painfully close to another existing starting quarterback in the NFL. Do you want to guess who that is? Like amazingly close.
Even with the coming off the injury into the league kind of thing?
No.
Okay.
No, but just number of games started as a rookie, blah, 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 blah.
I'm coming up blank here.
It is Jared Goff. He is exactly in the Goff archetype in terms of
that sounds good for Tua's bank account.
Target. Of course it is. Yeah. The depth of target, completion percentage over expected. You pick the kind of metric you want to kind of put your quarterback in a given archetype or basket, and Goff and Tua are sitting right there next to each other.
So you put Goff with a coach who can't get the most out of an offense because the game has passed him by, and it doesn't work. And I certainly do not want to throw, our guy. God, I've already forgot his name now because he got fired.
Anthony Lynn?
No, not Anthony Lynn. Our guy down in Miami that we were just talking about.
Oh, Brian Flores. Yeah.
Brian Flores. I don't want to throw him in with Jeff Fisher. Like Jeff Fisher Fisher. There was a time where Jeff Fisher was a good coach, but like you saw the difference between what happened with Jeff Fisher and what. Again, I don't think Jared Goff is ever going to peak past where he's been, but someone like McVay was able to get a lot more out of him.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's the crux of the pro Tua. The whole argument is the pro Tua thing is, all right, I'm Mike McDaniel. I'm smart. I have these glasses. That means I'm smart. You can tell just by looking at me. And I know what we have in Tua. And now we have Tyreek. We still have Waddle. We had Cedric Wilson. We have Gesicki, who is, again, you talk about what they did with Kittle, and maybe the ceiling for a guy like Gesicki is kind of high if that's the kind of offense they decide to run. And then
Sure.
you throw in, I mean, God, they have like 9 running backs on the roster now, which is maybe also a good sign for the teams who are able to build the right kind of roster. They're fine with just never signing an expensive running back.
Surely.
Like,
Surely.
yeah, like, hey, here's an expensive running back for $30. But like, yeah, or I could get this 6-pack of running backs for 11. Like, but those are bad running backs. Yeah, but I have 6 of them. One of them is going to be better than we think. And I don't
Yeah.
want to discount Mostert and Edmonds. Like, those were decent signings, but they have a shitload of running backs. And I like that kind of roster building. So I think
Okay. So
I think they have the offensive skill positions around him to try to do something like the 49ers did last year. And truthfully, like, if we get to the point, if they do that, if they do exactly what I say, they put Tua in that position and he still can't make it happen, then it's done. Then we're blowing it up. Like, all right, buddy, you're just not you're done.
Yeah.
You're not in the NFL anymore.
Yeah. So 2 problems with the Goff comp. Number one, you brought it up, which
Right-handed.
was he succeeded to the degree that he got paid, and then that really kind of put stress and strain on the Rams franchise until they eventually had to cut ties. I don't know that lightning strikes twice to that department. And then the other problem with the comp is, if you're thinking like, oh well, you were so high on Goff and the Lions a couple week ago, how can you be cool on Tua and the Dolphins now? Well, the market expects the Dolphins to be competitive in a very competitive conference. The market expects the Lions to suck in a really weak conference. And so relative to the market expectation, it is easy to be bullish on a high completion, low air yard quarterback like Goff and have questions about a high completion percentage, low air yard quarterback like Tua.
What would you
yeah,
do? What would you do with your percentages right now if I told you that Mike McDaniel what if Mike McDaniel has been doing nothing but showing Tua highlights of Goff for like 2 weeks, for like 2 months now? Like, I would raise my percentage, be like, this
I
is what
think
you're
I
doing.
would too, because this is,
Like,
and I don't have much more to say about Tua other than like, I kind of think now that you're going to get winning football out of this team this year, probably, unless McDaniels is way out of his league, right? Like if McDaniels, and you said it, I think the same way or different, same thing in a different way, which is like, it kind of all depends on him this year. He needs to
it
be able
really
to implement the
does.
system and do it well and kind of bring these guys together. And that's not a guarantee. Let's move on to the rest of the offense. And you've highlighted the additions that they made in the off. They've added everyone. They added everyone they could add. You got the most elite tackle in the free agency in Armstead. You got the most elite wide receiver that was available apparently, and Tyreek Hill. And I got to take a little sidebar here to talk about Hill. It is virtually impossible to dissect the Kansas City offense success and apportion the credit appropriately between what Reed was bringing, what Mahomes' unique skill set brought, and what Tyreek Hill and what Travis Kelce brought to the table, because they all were so far above average, above replacement, above league average. They were all so far above average that when
You're
they were all
asking like
singing
who should
together,
get
it
who
was
should
like
get
the
what
Beatles.
share of
Yeah.
the six of
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
what
Right.
share of the credit is what you're saying.
Right.
It's
How
hard to
come the
tell.
Beatles were the most successful rock band? Was it
Well,
because
sure,
thanks to
shit wasn't
Paul
Ringo.
or yeah, but well, Travis Kelce can be Ringo. But in
Oh,
general, you think Andy Reid's Ringo?
Devernay Lafont or whatever. He's Ringo.
Tardif.
Tardif.
The general kind of credit you want to give Hill is very tough to apportion correctly. I don't have
Mhm.
the right answer, but I can tell you that among all skill position players, he ranks in the 99.9th percentile for me. I don't know that I'm taking anyone over him.
I
at the
don't
skill
want this.
position.
Yeah,
If I
I don't
have
want
first
this to
choice
come
of
out
skill
wrong.
position players on a redraft, I'm thinking long and hard before I'm taking anyone over Hill because of his unique set of skills.
Does your mind ever wander when you're doing research for the season and you start thinking? Because I was thinking about the exact same thing that you just mentioned, but in a completely different way. Because I do like Gesicki, and I love him if this is where the offense is heading. And I thought hard about that. I'm like, what if Travis Kelsey starts to have like a bad season and we get to like week 4 and Gesicki has like 6 touchdowns and like he's averaging like 8 targets for 7 catches and 115. It's like I
Like,
just had to think about it
that's
like,
that's the new
is
Kelsey.
Reek,
Yeah.
and again, I don't even have the connection to be like, what is the causation that would make a wide receiver make a tight end that much more successful? I don't believe Travis Kelsey is like fully reliant on Reek. I just thought about that for a little bit, and I mean, there's a modicum of truth in that. I do think having better wide receivers and really, I mean, Waddle and Tyreek is a very nice 1-2 combo if you have the quarterback in the system to use it right. And I think Gesicki, there's no chance he doesn't benefit from that. I think he will have a very nice year. So I'm very excited for him. And then
Yeah.
again, all the running backs, like for fantasy purposes, the running back room is a mess. But yeah, like Mostert and I keep wanting to say Connors. I know that's not right. Edmonds. I keep saying Connors for some reason.
No idea who that is.
Connor Williams is your
Chase
starter.
Edmonds. Yeah, Chase Edmonds is good.
Chase
Yeah.
Edmonds. I think that's a
fine.
nice fit too. I liked him in Arizona. I think he has some wear on the tires. So
I don't like Sony Michel though. You should probably cut him.
no, that's fine. Like he can go catch
You
on
want a
with some
short
team
yardage
that
guy?
doesn't know better.
Okay. No, okay. Let's kind of put the bow on Hill though. Like physical tools fit in a McDaniel style offense, checks every box as far as game breaking, everything. And kind of like the can't miss talent that it's going to be tough to screw it up, I think, which ultimately raises the Dolphins offensive floor significantly than if you did not have him. Right. Takes attention, pulls gravity away from Waddle, makes Waddle a better player, a better contributor. And ultimately, like, this offense should be decently above league average, even if Tua takes 0 step forward and is literally Goff 2.0. This should look like a good offense. Disagree or agree?
No, like again, I would take Goff 2.0 if I'm a Dolphins fan. Like if you can give me again getting a full season of healthy Tua and him playing to the level of Goff 2.0 with the skill position players around him, because it'll be like, the first time that Tua has a 300-yard game, if that all comes to fruition, like I'd love to see what his actual air yards are, because you feel like if they do the offense right, it's going to be like, oh, he had like a 300-yard game, but like, yeah, but I mean, Tyreek had like a 75-yard bubble screen that went to the house.
Go look at Tua's game logs from last year. That's a lot of that. It's a lot of that.
That's what I'm saying. Like in the past, that has worked with him.
For sure.
They just didn't do enough of it, and also they didn't have Tyreek Hill. Which, I mean, if you wanted to throw a bubble screen or a little jet screen to anybody, again, he's pretty high on my list of guys I'd like to have with the ball in his hands, running start and a few blockers. Like it's going to be funny to see his actual air yards, because I think if they do it right, his air yards will be low and his efficiencies will be high.
So now here's the other side of the coin with Tyreek Hill. I don't know that he was, I give him, or I put some of the reason that the Chiefs offense was sluggish in the first half of the year on the shoulders of the fact that Hill had limited mobility with the hamstring. Like that was an injury, very quietly, close to the vest kept injury with the Chiefs last year. Hill was not 100%, couldn't break the game in the same way at the beginning of the year as he could at the end of the year. And that, in fact, that affected the whole offense. Injury is still a concern because of what his physical tools are in general. Just in general, getting along with the rest of the system. If it's a rough start because McDaniels isn't quite ready for this yet, or because the offensive line doesn't really have cohesion, and Tua's under duress and he's doing more dump offs, and Tyreek Hill is, what does your gut say? Is Hill a potential problem in the locker room if he is running wide open 15 yards down the field or further, in a losing effort multiple times in a game? Like, does this turn into an OBJ type of situation?
I can't speak to his character that much. I don't know. Like, he got paid, and I think he's in a good offense again. I don't think it turns year one. I think that's more of a next year conversation. Like, if it doesn't happen this year, it's like, all right, well, we brought a lot of new pieces in, and we had some good moments. Next year, though, boy, we keep the score together, we're going to turn it. And then if it doesn't work, and he's running 30 yards down the field, the offensive line's playing great, and Tua's taking a sack anyway when he turns around, and maybe you're going to hear some belly aching from a guy like that. So I don't think so this year. It would have to be very bad, and at that point, things are going bad enough, or does it really matter that Tyreek is like the ship's sinking and Tyreek's drilling an extra hole in it? Like, at that point,
yeah, good point.
Doesn't matter to me. If it's going that poorly that he's malcontent,
I guess if the first 4 weeks of the season end up being extended preseason from the Dolphins and Tyreek is unhappy, does that inhibit a turnaround? Is kind of where I'm at. Do you know what I'm saying?
Hopefully we have enough. And again, you want to just heap praise on Mike McDaniel and expect him to be the prince that was promised. Like,
I don't know.
That's what I'm saying is he's also a guy who's never had to manage personalities as the head cheese. Like, there's some guys who it's like, oh, he could be the smartest guy we've ever found for running and scheming offenses, but there's still some guys that struggle to manage a locker room. If he doesn't get buy-in and stuff, then it could be a problem. So again, these are all speculative stuff that we don't know the answer to.
The last guy to be way too young for the job was McVay. And so, although McDaniel's substantially quirkier than
also we're gonna get comments. You can't put an S in his name.
I didn't say McDaniel.
McDaniel is. I'm gonna rewind this. You've said it like 5 times.
McDaniel is.
One was a possessive, which was
significantly quirkier, which cuts both ways. But Miami's a quirky town, so maybe it is
a quirky town. Anything on the defense before we move on to the schedule? Like, this is a
firmly not bottom half, but low upside defense in my ratings. This is one of the tighter bands.
Fair.
Like, they finish between 8 and 15 in 90% of realizations.
If you get really top-notch play from Byron Jones and Xavier Howard, then they top out. And their ceiling is 8 to 10. Like, that's really maxing out. Like, 8 is like you're getting elite corner play, like the best that those two guys can do. And the pass rush is going to be good. I can't really speak to what I think of the linebacking crew. It's good. I'm a big Van Ginkel guy. You know that. I always have.
Yeah, Van Ginkel going to get a starting role.
Jalen Phillips another year under his belt, and then a good pass rush in front of him. And they run a 3-4, I think. So I might have to double check.
You know what's a positive for the defense, and one of the reasons I'm fine having a tight band on them? Josh Boyer, year 3. He survived the exodus.
Yeah, they did keep several. Like I said, Studesville, the who ended up being, an assistant head coach. That's maybe the other thing too, to just touch back on, becoming the leader of men right away because you've never been the head coach. Maybe that was a good move, taking a couple guys in Eric Studesville and Embry came over from the Niners. Studesville was in Miami. So you bring one of your guys from 49ers, you have a guy who was here last year in the building already, and you make them both assistant, associate head coaches. Having like a three-headed attack for managing the team, probably a smart idea. And then, like you said, that Josh Boyer, the continuity of the defense. I think he's been a couple of years now. 3? Is that what you
Third
said?
year.
Third
Yep.
year?
Third year.
You know where he got his first defensive coordinator job?
Yeah, I had low expectations for him, honestly.
No, but do you know where his first defensive coordinator job was?
Yes, I do. This is funny because Patriots media, Boston Sports Talk used to just utterly tear him apart when he was the cornerbacks coach and the secondary sucked in for the Patriots. He was the South Dakota School of Mines.
The Hard Rockers.
The Hard Rockers. That's right. He came from.
If anyone remembers that tweet, there was like a viral tweet where their stadium just had like an area where people would like drive their trucks up next to it because it's South Dakota and watch.
There was one year where the Patriots were expected to compete for a Super Bowl. I was listening to a lot of Boston Sports Talk for some reason. I don't even remember why. And they used to pick on Boyer for being the School of Mines. And they would pick on, I can't even remember the guy's name anymore, but he was a guard and he was like a converted tuba player. He didn't even play college football. He played in the marching band. And boy, oh boy, did they give him a hard time. I don't think he ended up making the roster by the end of the season. But the tuba player and the School of Mines guy, those were the funny. Those were the punching bags. Anyway, let's look at the schedule.
All right, tight band. Bring in the schedule. I like that you chose orange and teal for the. I mean, it's on everyone's schedule, but it's very appropriate for this one.
Ooh, boy, is it ever!
But boy, the travel disadvantage spots.
Another lopsided season for the Miami Dolphins. What is going on
a little
here?
Back and forth throughout it, and then a big, just like I believe it was Minnesota that had one of these too, where they had, and that's I think where it was like a big disadvantage right before the bye. That's something I've seen a lot of this year in the schedules is a big rest disadvantage right before you take your bye, which sucks, but hopefully at that point, and you know what the worst part about that is look at what week it is. It's week 10, which means that's probably, I'm trying to think when Cleveland's bye is. Do you know if Cleveland has an early or late bye?
I believe they are middle of the pack, but I don't recall.
I can't speak to it. So that would be either Deshaun Watson's first or second game back. It would be even worse if it was his second, if you were able to get one extra game to get his feet under him. But like having a big rest disadvantage and then playing Cleveland after the 8 game, which is, again, we're presupposing it's 8. That's kind of the general consensus around the rumor mills right now. I don't
Cleveland's coming off of bye.
Oh, that's why it's such a rest disadvantage.
Yeah, that's why it's a rest
disadvantage. You've had 2, so you'll have 2 weeks to get Deshaun Watson fully integrated and practicing in this offense. And then you face a team off the bye after again, it's not going to be a good team, but it's still no fun to go up to Soldier Field and play. Like, that's a tough environment to play, even when they're shitty. And you've just played Detroit, which, again, might be even if they're not good and don't win a bunch of games, they're going to be pesky and they're not going to roll over for teams. Minnesota has a chance to be a pretty good offense. It's a fun matchup, honestly. Minnesota's at a disadvantage there. If you go back and look at the Minnesota schedule, that's a bad spot for the Vikes. Pittsburgh, I don't know what to think of them. I have a long time to get my Pittsburgh takes in line. I'm not even going to say anything now, but very, like you said, very unbalanced with a pretty tough start. What if New England is okay, or at least they're good to start the season? Then you've got basically 3 teams that are very much vying for not only division titles, but Those are
Bang, bang,
probably
bang.
3 of your 4 best AFC teams right there.
Yeah. Nah,
I mean,
3 of your 5.
I'd put Kansas City and
KC and Chargers right now,
Chargers
power
right
rated
there. So yeah,
are up
like
there. Yeah.
I'd put Chargers 5th out of 5 in those. So I'm
Okay.
still 3 out of 4 there. But yeah,
Okay.
it's probably the first, third, and fourth best AFC teams. 2 of them on the road in nasty AFC North environments. Again, it'll be warm at least. At least you get those AFC North games out of the way early, the ones that are away. But again, late in the season, you go play
That's a
at
good point.
Buffalo in December. That's not fun for a Miami team. You play New England in December at New England. This is not a great schedule for
No,
the
it's not.
Dolphins. Again, I think if you looked at it from a generalized, like, how does it rank among schedules? I think it's probably league average.
No, it's not.
Some of the really, that's right.
No,
I don't have it that tough.
No.
I have it like 14th toughest, I think.
Just in terms of strength of opponent?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. If you
right.
looked at it from like wins, losses, strength of opponent, it's right in the middle.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
situationally and the way it sequences, it's tough.
It's tough.
It is very tough, in my opinion.
Yeah. The couple of thoughts, you bring up a correct point, which is you are thrown right into the fire with the Baltimore Buffalo Cincy stretch, right into the fire. The middle part where you're favored in a lot of games, some of those are sneaky tough. Back-to-back travel to Detroit, Chicago is not easy from Miami. Those are long trips. But the back-to-back travel in December is eye-opening. Holy hell. Now,
that's as bad as it gets.
That's as bad as it gets. But let me kind of caution some jumping to conclusions.
We need a map for that.
We're going to jump to conclusions. At San Francisco, at Chargers, back-to-back weekends. 2 in a row on the West Coast. And from the Shanahan tree, where Shanahan liked to request that, that road trip, requested road trip for Shanahan that he has every year, right? Possible that Miami has asked for this and asked to group the San Francisco Chargers trips back-to-back. I doubt they asked to then go to Buffalo. But I think that the first 2 there at San Francisco, at Chargers, it's possible that was requested, in which case they have some plan of we're going to stay in Santa Clara or whatever after we play the Niners, practice for a week, and be ready for that Chargers game, which would make that Miami Chargers game just absolutely electric. Very excited for that one. Just great matchups of potential skill position players and offenses in general.
Somebody quick to ask, what's the total for the Minnesota game? It was 2.75, but the Loons are already up 3-0 on Everton, so that over is halfway home already.
Was that the question?
I doubt they were talking about that. I just noticed that. Somebody tagged me, or Doc tagged me, because all these EPL teams and Bayern Munich are coming over to play like American teams, MLS teams, just kick the shit out of them, except somehow Minnesota's up 3-0 in the first half. Maybe Everton didn't bring all their players. That's pretty funny. But that minute, what is that total? Do you have the totals in front of you?
What's the date on it?
It looks like it
10-16?
10-16, Miami, Minnesota.
I got a look ahead total of 47. Too low. Way too low.
What could be a very good offense in Minnesota and a very effective offense in Miami against. Probably the biggest question mark for Miami will be the secondary, even though I like Howard. And the biggest question mark for Minnesota for sure is the secondary.
Oh, yeah.
So that is low. Let's bet that.
I like that one. That's a good circle. And in general, I think Miami will be an interesting over team when they're going up against a team with outstanding skill position players, because like as much as I like Byron Jones and Xavier Howard, like they are kind of like what's the right word? Like if you're bad, they're gonna smother you, and if you're good, they're gonna struggle a little bit.
Front runners,
sure. There
I
you
mean,
go.
for the most part. So,
For the most part, yeah.
look
But
at
no,
it.
but like you know,
Look
like
at the odds.
they're like the line of "Are you good?" If you can beat me, you're good. If you can't, then you're not.
Oh,
And so,
Bellwether.
yeah, there you go, Bellwether. Yeah. You know who like a Casper Ruud in the ATP tour.
Yeah,
He's not beating anyone ranked above him. But if you're ranked below him, you're gonna struggle.
I have to ask Noops this tomorrow on Brown Bank. There's a woman's tennis player who's like this. It's
Elise Mertens.
if you beat her, you're. I don't think it's Mertens. I think it's maybe
Mertens
it's
used to be the one. Mertens used to be the one.
Let's look at the schedule before we
the odds
before we get off on a
flip to some odds.
ATP Hamburg.
Yeah.
Sign collectible says Mertens.
I think
know,
it's
maybe
Mertens,
that one
yeah.
is right. All right, so over under is 8.5.
40 to 1.
Fair, but boy, if I after all the nice things I said about Miami, if you made me bet a regular season win total, you said here's $100 for free. You can either bet it on this win total or give it back. I would bet the under at plus money.
Really?
Not a strong take, but there's a lot of situations where the offense just doesn't work well enough to navigate a very tough schedule in a coach's first year. I'm not saying this is a bet. I won't make a bet on the on any of this. To make the playoffs, that number's just not big enough for me. With the tough start, if that's a market that's up throughout the season, maybe that's kind of plan of attack, Andy, is if it does go bad right off the bat, I think things could level out. But again, you have that rough ass stretch late in the season too. So, you can take and get some value maybe in week 4 or 5 to make the playoffs. But that value might evaporate in December when you get to that rough stretch at the end. So I'm not sure there is a plan of attack on Miami as far as betting. I guess if the offense is cooking and Howard does struggle with top end receivers, and again, looking back at that schedule, you got Diggs a couple times, you got Justin Jefferson, you've got Darryl Mooney. I'm just throwing the bone to the Bears, I guess, but there's some high end receivers that might cook their asses. So they might be an over team. Like if this offense is efficient, it's keeping drives going, and it's just bringing up their average points per drive, even if it's a bunch of field goals. If it's just efficiently getting drives to the finish, they could be a buy-on team. If they start slow, they could be a buy-on team against the spread. If you're seeing good things, but they just played tough, I think it's going to be a week-by-week thing with this team for sure.
Okay, so I am cautiously optimistic about this overall working. And again, a ton of it, as we've kind of circled on now, relies less on can Tua make the leap? Can Tua improve? Like, I think you're getting a baseline, a performance out of Tua, considering that you've upgraded all of his protection, his weapons, and he is a high completion, low air yard guy. Like, he's kind of a known quantity. McDaniel is the wild card here. And if he brings like a Sean McVay surprise kind of mindset to this organization and catches people by surprise because they just don't know how to game plan for him early on, and they catch a couple of wins in that early part of their schedule, which is really challenging, then you're going to be you're going to be heading into that Cleveland game where they're coming off their bye. You might be like 7-2. I mean, that's not crazy. And you go through a really tough stretch late, but you have the potential for kind of bringing your team together even more with that requested road trip. So I think this is a playoff team, and I don't know the right time to bet on that because it feels like a flat out gamble to do it before the season.
Yeah, I think I'm willing to throw caution to the wind a little, which is not what you should be doing with betting, and say, I don't care how hard that late stretch of games is. This team is getting it even more than I thought they could. Like if I see something early from this offense where it's like, this is fucking cohesive, I'll bet this team to make the playoffs. Maybe there's an obscene number for them to win the AFC Like, if you get some triple digit numbers where it's like they struggled, but the offense gets it, they're going to beat all the teams they're expected to beat, and they're going to be a 7 seed. I'm fine taking some flyers and some stuff like that.
Okay.
Although the AFC is tough, and it didn't get any easier by bringing Russell Wilson and Matt Ryan over to the, from the NFC to the AFC. So it's a tough one to bet.
The chain, yeah, it is the AFC, man. My God. We haven't even really talked about this, looked at it at a macro level, but yeah, you lose Drew Lock, and you lose Drew Lock, you lose Carson Wentz, and you gain a healthy Lamar Jackson, Matt Ryan, and Russell Wilson into your conference. Like, boy, oh boy, it was already an imbalanced situation between the North and the AFC and the NFC. Yeah, absolutely crazy. So the power the market is telling us this is a league average team. I agree with that on defense, although again, there's room to the upside. I disagree with that on offense. Right now, their offense is 18th ranked in the NFL based on the look ahead lines. If you decompose the spreads and totals, 18 sounds low. You brought it up before the podcast.
There's a lot of room for that to go higher.
A lot of room for that to go higher. Yeah. I mean,
narrow band on the defense, big band on the offense, and we'll see.
Yeah. So
wait and see. So. All right, let's do one more podcast.
I'm already struggling with what to do with that week 2 game where they go to Baltimore.
You don't have to bet it.
I know I don't have to bet it, but there's
that's what I'm going to do.
If there's a what do you call it? Baltimore typically comes out week 1 and just absolutely fillets their opponent. They get the Jets. Potential that there's a close and or a loss against the Patriots as a favorite. It's set up pretty well for a buy, like an immediate buy low on this team week 2.
Yeah, there's going to be buy low. There will be a buy low spot before week 5 on this team. It's just, do you have the stomach to handle the late season schedule? And I have to see enough to make me want to overcome that. Okay. And also, they're in a tough division with the Buffalo fucking Bills, who we're going to close this week out on right now by starting a whole new podcast where Drew will do a whole new intro, and then I will tell you about our sponsor. So, Drew, 3, 2,
1. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Andy, this is the most anticipated episode of the entire run-up. We get to talk about the league's number 1 perceived team. Number 1 with a bullet in the Buffalo Bills. Market currently ranking this team number 1 offense, number 3 defense. Power number is the ceiling among all teams for this season. All of that seems warranted, but there is a lot of optimism about this team built into the market perception. Agree or disagree?
Agree. And we saw a bit of a inconsistent team at times. So it is a little bit, there's some trepidation, I believe, is the word for me. But I still have this as my number 1 team in my power rankings until further notice. And the way I've been talking about some of these teams where I said, like, I put the sticker on lately, it's not like I'm going to make this my 8th ranked team if we don't see a good performance against the Bills, but I'm willing to make some changes to this power number quicker than I may have thought I would have at the end of last season based on some of the offseason stuff, which we'll get into right now because we have a podcast we can do about the Bills. Quick, I should mention that we are sponsored and brought to you by Circus Sports and their millionaire contests with the no overlays. I cannot stress this one enough. Like, going off script right now to talk about that. They don't, all the money that goes into the pot gets paid back out to winners. And it's nice too, because even if you suck ass and you're no good and you do poorly for a big chunk of the season on the millionaire contest has quarterly payouts. Like you can be way out of the money and still, have a nice run at the end of the season, get one of those quarterly payouts, which is pretty big cash too. $12 million guaranteed prizes, the Survivor League and the Millionaire. No rake, 2 ways to play. Check it out. We'll be out there on August 12th for one of the sign-up weekends. Come party with me. You don't want to party with me. Like I always talk about I'm Andy, I'm 38 and I like to garden and I'm boring.
He'll leave you on Fremont Street in a gutter. Yeah, that's what he's saying.
Vegas Andy's a whole different guy. So come hang with that and we'll hang out. But yeah, and if you get dead last, there is a prize for that as well, the booby prize.
Prize.
Bills 21 recap. Let's just stick to the regular season because I don't think postseason stuff is super predictive, and we don't need to rehash anything that happened in the postseason with this team.
Oh, no. We definitely do. Definitely do.
I don't want to PTSD your ass.
No,
but it's been a while. It's like an old girlfriend. Like I'm over her by now.
You know what heals Bill's wounds? Rams winning the Super Bowl.
Rams Super Bowl. That, to be fair,
Super Bowl too.
If I could have told you in that moment that I can guarantee you the Rams win the Super Bowl, I still don't think you would have calmed down. You still yell at me.
Well, I still angry. I would have been like, well, they would have beat the Bills if the Bills had won that game.
Yeah, it would have been more money. But
yeah, right.
No, the 2021 season, I think it gets looked back as a very successful season because once you saw that team in the playoffs, you're like, holy shit, this is the best team. Like they're going to hang with the Chiefs. They're probably going to beat the Chiefs. They're going to beat anything the NFC throws at them. Like how they looked in that first playoff game. I think that would they score on every drive? It was like the Patriots game. It was 7 drives, 7 scores. It was like 47 to nothing, not nothing, but 47, like 14. I'm gonna have to go back and find that score. It was a clinic from this offense. You saw everything working. And we joke about Kansas City for many years and say, oh, they're saving the good plays. Buffalo saved the good plays. They absolutely did not use everything during the regular season. They had some stuff saved up for the postseason. And
Let me push back on that a little.
They came in hot.
Did they save them or did they, as a collective, figure out what their good plays were?
I think it's a combination of that. Like saving, I don't think there's like a meeting at the beginning of the season and say, these are our best plays and we're saving them. Like, I think you do learn throughout the season, like, here's what we're successful at. And then when you get to the playoffs, you can expand on those packages. I think when we say they're saving the good plays, it's not like some envelope that they're opening on, week 1 of the playoffs. So, all right, we're using this, but yes, like there is you're hitting it on the head there. There is a learning curve to here's what we're most successful at. And the good teams with analytics departments can even get numbers on that. So like these are our most efficient, plays to run against this defense. When we think that they're going to give us this look, if we're running this package, we should be doing this. And a smart team come postseason will have enough data against enough good opponents and enough plays to say like, all right, here's where we're efficient. Why don't we just play to our strengths? And a good, smart team with good coaching, a good scouting, film review department is going to take that and run with it in the playoffs. And they did. They were very good. And then just, the Kansas City game was a little bit of bad luck and a little bit of playing against a team with way more recent playoff experience, a freak at quarterback, a great offense, a good head coach, and a little bit of bad luck when it came to the weighting of a certain coin. I mean, really, like if they get that coin toss, I do not expect Kansas City to stop that team from scoring. I mean, your minimum is someone drops a ball on 3rd down and you're kicking a field goal. Like that team is scoring a field goal at least 90% of the time.
I would say
touchdown is
irrespective of who wins the coin toss. That game was just going to be decided on the first drive, considering the rules 80% of the time. There was no resistance from either defense at that point.
Yeah, we were at that point. That's where when the coin toss was lost, I gave up.
Yeah,
I fully just gave up on the game. I'm like, well, this is fucked. I hate this.
I thought they were in the back of my head. I was like, they might be able to create a turnover, but that's the only
Oh yeah,
chance.
you have to have some
That's
copiums.
their only chance.
Copium, hopium, whatever opium you need. And yes, but real quick too, the regular season saw some weirdness, and I don't know how to put a
sure
finger on what
did.
happened. But like putting up 6 points against the Jags, like just falling flat a couple times was weird. Having some games where they looked unstoppable, they were. And you'll read this if you go to Football Outsiders and read their preview. If you read Cleve TA's, like there's metrics around variance, and they were high variance. They probably underperformed, honestly. Like if they got their shit together a little better, they would have had the number 1 overall seed. This was a team that probably underperformed last year in the regular season and the playoffs. Should have been a team in the Super Bowl. And I don't know what to do going forward with that, because I can't take 2021 and what I saw was, here's what this team can be, and not make them at least tied for my highest power ranked team.
Yeah.
And then take the other part of saying, like, but there was inconsistency throughout the season, and we lost a very important coach, probably. And that's why I'm saying I'm willing to watch these first few games, which again, Tennessee is a 7-point favorite. That's not a pushover team. That's not some team that hasn't had success in these last few years. It's been to playoff games, been to AFC title games in the past few years, has a pretty decent coach, has a decent quarterback, and some good pieces on that team. Like, you don't have a pushover until you get to Pittsburgh if the quarterback stuff doesn't work out, in my opinion. So they have tests early on, and I have my finger on the trigger to downgrade this Bills team quickly, and I hope I don't have to, because I really do think
I would not downgrade them.
No,
but that doesn't mean
not heavily, but like I'm willing to start dinging them out of that top spot if we get to week 3 and they've lost to the Rams and they didn't look good against Tennessee and they struggle at Miami. Even if they're 2-1 and they didn't look good getting it done at Miami, like I don't see how those game grades are going to put me in a spot where I say, like, oh, this team's going to be just fine without Dable.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I'm not saying like I'm going to drop them 2 points. I'm saying, there's a lot of teams where I would be fine leaving them alone for 3 or 4 weeks before I even thought about it. But I'm watching this team very closely in those first 4 games to determine what I think. And I want your opinion. I mean, just I'm supposed to be the Bills Max? No, you're the Bills Maxi in this one. This is good that I'm being.
No. I was going to throw cold water, I thought.
No, because we
were going to switch.
You threw cold water on the Dolphins.
Oh, I
was the Tua Maxi.
Okay,
you got to be the Bills. Yeah, fight me on that then, I guess. Well,
okay,
you'd be the Bills Maxi here. Like
2021 was absurd.
Absurd.
They're for a team that went 11-6 to lose every single 1-score game is seemingly impossible. There was only one loss on their schedule that was like a true loss, and that was when the Colts showed up and just absolutely jackhammered them in Buffalo. I think you can look at this schedule though, and you can see a team that like understood and reflected on the fact that there's 17 games. We can't bring it every week. But they did zero in and bring outstanding game plans and very strong level of effort in every divisional game. Thumped the Dolphins twice, blanked the Jets twice. And then, one hard-fought loss in absolutely ridiculous conditions that we talked about in the last pod against the Patriots that they lose at home. But then they turned around and they unlocked all of the good plays in their playoff. I'd say it was like that was like their playoff like dress rehearsal, that week 16 game at Foxborough that ultimately clinched them the AFC East. They get the home game, and then the rest is history with burying the Patriots in that home game. As you mentioned, by that point in time, the offense was clicking on all cylinders. And I would argue that in general, I think that reflected some transfer of power from Dable being the important kind of role player in the Josh Allen development in year 3 to Josh Allen fully embracing and, cerebrally taking over what he wanted to do on the field in year 4 by the end of the year. Does that make sense what I'm saying? I think in general, you looked at year 3 leap for Allen, and you had to divide it up into they got Diggs as a weapon, they got Dable to give him to run the easy plays, and the in general the team, the team was well composed for him, and but the lion's share of the credit went to him improving his accuracy. Nothing about that significantly dropped off in year 4, but it felt like he relied less on Dable kind of making the calls, particularly in the really high leverage moments in the really important games. And some of that was just keeping the ball, holding on. He didn't like the read, he didn't like the defense, he held on to it, and he got the hard yards himself because he's a fucking monster. And that was eye-opening to see. And as soon as you identified it, you were like, okay, this is going to be a problem for teams to stop in the playoffs. Like, I don't know that there is a defense that is really well rostered to be able to stop this, because you now have a player as big as Roethlisberger, who is as athletic as anyone not named Lamar Jackson, with the ball in his hands on every single play. And oh, by the way, he can throw a fucking rope in 20-degree weather. Right? Like, he is the perfect kind of archetype for what you want as a playoff quarterback, particularly in the frozen tundra. And I think he kind of found his final form in this playoff run. And so the ceiling for him in the Bills this season is Super Bowl or bust, really.
Yeah.
And I think it, the taking the next step was always clear. It didn't happen last year, beating the Chiefs in Arrowhead. But I think if the Bills don't put their foot on the gas and keep their foot on the gas throughout the duration of the season, it's not going to surprise me. But I still think they would like to have the home game in the AFC title game. I think they kind of, because again, like, we have not really seen Pat Mahomes go on the road and get it done in the playoffs. That's an interesting
when I
question.
talked about, like, when I made you tell me which, the last AFC title game for all the teams in this division, 2 of them, the last AFC title game, were in Kansas City. Like, there's been a few of these that have been in Kansas City of late. That's not what you want to do late in the season. So
No.
I'll start throwing cold water, as it says, on the hot wings here in Beefalo. I think probably the biggest, I don't want to, I had this written down, I couldn't defend it. Like, hey, people have maybe figured out what this offense wants to do and figured out some of the Josh Allen stuff. I don't know if that's going to be a thing, but if they team, that happens to everyone. I mean, that's not a thing. It happens to every team. Teams need to continue to innovate and stay, unpredictable. They have to be unpredictable. It's like what you said with the, it's hard to be an offensive lineman. It's even harder when the defense knows what play you're running. Like, if you need to innovate, you need to be unpredictable. And now we have a guy who has never called plays before. And I don't know how much you want to put on Dable as far as giving him the credit for this offense, giving him the credit for the Josh Allen turnaround, the Josh Allen step forward we saw. But I give him a lot of that.
Oh yeah,
I'm excited. I'm excited to see what he does now, the next level, and I'm a little nervous that this offense has a chance to take a step back without him around, with a new play caller in town that we didn't really see doing anything before this. I mean, I can remember him playing. That's how old we're getting, but. I mean, he's been with the Bills organization for a few years now as the quarterback's coach. And again, I don't want to debate myself and just give you, but he was, passing game coordinator, quarterback's coach. So I feel like he worked with Josh Allen. So I'm probably going to have to give him a portion of the credit for that too. But you see this all the time where you have a guy who hasn't managed an offense completely by himself, called plays, and sometimes you can see some struggle bus there. So, I mean, defend Ken Dorsey.
Oh boy.
I mean, is the argument just there's enough skill and leftovers
I'm gonna blow your mind. You ready?
I doubt it.
Between
I doubt I'm ready.
Between McDermott, Dorsey, and Les Frazier, I am the least concerned about Dorsey.
Really? I would say Les Frazier. I love Les Frazier as a defensive coordinator.
Oh, buddy.
He's your.
Buddy.
I don't
He's
want
the
to say
reason they didn't win the Super Bowl last year.
I don't want to say I'm not worried about this defense. I am very worried about this defense for other reasons, but I think he's fine. McDermott, I don't know. I don't know if I can say a bad thing about him.
He didn't squib kick it, Andy. Why didn't he squib kick?
Yeah, they were worried about the return, I guess.
What?
And that was his call.
What universe?
I know it's such a low probability of like a return there. That part still gets in my craw, and I hate McDermott for that call. But
because if they return it, you're god damn it, I can't even.
I know, but I don't. If you return it, you have like 6 seconds left, if that. I don't believe in. I have no problem with Les Frazier. He's done a lot with little at points in his career, and I think he's a fine defensive coordinator who can manage this team.
That's the problem.
I'm fine with me. I'm fine. Yeah,
he's fine. He's fine.
No, and it's hard to get and keep great coordinators. That's what we saw with Dable. I think my problem with Ken Dorsey, because we're sitting here, it's July. It's just I don't know. Like I hate unknowns. And his range of outcomes is pretty wide. I'm not going to sit here and say like Ken Dorsey isn't the right man for the job. Sounds like a fun political ad. But hey, you want to see Ken Dorsey's voting record on guns?
Can you give me an example of a play caller that was brought in to replace an elite play caller who left, who was given a top 3 quarterback to work with in an elite offense and an easy schedule, and truly failed to the point where he was the problem? Because there's just not any of those examples.
I mean, I wanted to make some there's cowboy jokes, but I mean that was an injury year.
Which year are you talking about? Oh, the year with Kellen Moore?
The first McCarthy year.
No, the first McCarthy year. Okay, that's still
was that the injury year?
Yes, it was.
That Kellen Moore? Yeah. Like what are you gonna do?
That was Kellen Moore's like second year. No, like there's not a ton of examples of the OC not ultimately meshing with an elite quarterback, because even if Dorsey has some ups and downs, like what does a failed Dorsey campaign look like? Like he just can't learn, like he's just running on first and second downs incessantly and will not, like he's not calling the good passing routes. I don't think that's a thing.
No, I think you're exactly right. There's going to be spots where you're watching a game, be like, well, that's not how you call. Well, it's just like, no, I think the main thing that if somebody says that's not what you do with Allen and Diggs, like that's where I can't point to an exact example. I think you're right though. Like if it is bad play sequencing, just everything you say bad about an offensive coordinator. Sequencing sucks. The situational awareness sucks. Like running on first down, passing on this down that isn't right, passing against these light boxes. It's just doing everything predictable, being a bad overall game planner,
being a bad architect. Sure.
And that's not going to make this team bad. It's gonna just hinder them from being great.
Yeah, but that hinder them from being great means that they're just lose a couple more games than they would. They're just as good as
they win as many games as last year.
They win as many games.
I was going to say that's as much cold water as I can throw on this team. If Ken Dorsey sucks and this defense takes a step back, they win 11 games.
Right, but here's the other thing about Ken Dorsey sucking during the regular season. Who cares? This is you're still making the playoffs. This is a playoff team through and through. Josh Allen, and honestly, if Ken Dorsey isn't calling the Josh Allen run plays or giving, or is specifically telling Josh Allen in every meeting, do not run until week 17, great call by Ken Dorsey. Who's doing his job. Ken Dorsey not doing his job gets Josh Allen hurt. That is fundamentally, I think, the only way that Ken Dorsey brings down this absolute monster of an offense. The other two coaches are where I'm stuck on from my cold water standpoint. And McDermott still has not learned the correct way to deploy his decision making on fourth down. He made some decisions in that Chiefs game where he elected to punt when it was like, what game are you watching, man? Like, you can't fucking punt here. They went 4 for 4 on fourth down, for Christ's sakes. Like, Josh Allen was getting every hard yard you needed out of him in that game. And similarly, the squib kick was like a mind melt. But the Les Frazier thing is where I really want to zero in on here. And like, you're correct in being kind to him as far as he's 85th percentile, 90th percentile, even in terms of the defensive coordinators we've had in this league in the last 20 years. Like, he's stuck around for a long time for a reason. Like, he obviously understands defense. He has one major shortcoming, and it is in-game adjustments. Go find me the last time that his plan A coming into a game did not work. And at some point in the game, halftime, fourth quarter, you name it, some adjustment that he made ultimately was the master stroke that got them a win, because there are not a lot of examples of that. Literally,
that's probably
like,
fair. That's a fair criticism too. And I think you have a lot of these defensive coordinators where it's like they have one level of the defense that's very good on a good team, like the Bills, where the offense is, it hides a lot of. When the offense is on, you're not so worried about when the defense gives up 24. Like, it didn't matter.
unless you're playing Kansas City in the playoffs.
No, but I'm saying, like, if you put up 38, it's pretty easy to forget that your safety got roasted and you had a couple of bad defensive blunders. You forget a lot about that. And I mean, they were so dominant up front. I don't see that changing. My worry, and I'm going to switch. We're not going to do this like Miami. We're both going to throw cold water, because my biggest worry is probably this is, just a better version of a team we talked about last week in Minnesota with, a big step up at quarterback and good, probably great receiving core. I think the Crowder for Beasley swap is probably an upgrade at that point. You have Dawson Knox and OJ Howard. Like, you have good receivers. You have good line. You have a great quarterback. And then you have, there are worries in the secondary. Like, you have a good pass rush, and then you have it's just like Minnesota on steroids. It's a lot of question marks in the secondary and it's an injury concern because, like, Tre'Davious White, it's a bigger injury. He's going to miss part of the season. And I mean, it's a position where you see guys age out so quick, and it's sad. Like, I don't know. We started to get this class of like ultra lockdown corners, like 20 years ago. It's like, holy shit. Like, that they've changed all the rules to help the receivers, but like Revis, the rules can't stop him. Like, he's still just locked down. And then like 2 years later, it's like, man, Terrell Revis sucks. Like, he just, like, the aging curve for a quarterback is like that stupid M. Night Shyamalan movie where all the people get super old on that beach right away. Don't watch that movie, by the way.
I watched that movie and I forgot about it the next day.
So bad.
I literally sat down. My wife didn't watch it with me, and I was like, I watched a movie last night, but I totally forget what it was. What movie did I watch?
So much. Old. But that's what happens to cornerbacks in this. And then, that happens naturally. What happens when you have an elite, and Tre'Davious White is an elite corner? What happens if you have somebody who suffers a massive injury like this? Like, there's a non-zero chance, and it's quite a bit bigger than zero, honestly, that he just comes back and is never going to reach those heights again. He comes back and he is a league average corner because he's coming off a massive injury. He can't make the cuts. He can't make he can't make, he hasn't lost his brain. He's very smart. He'll be fine in that end. But like, if you can't hang with the guys you were hanging with because you have that nagging doubt about if your knee can make that cut, or you just lose a little bit of your jump, your step, your speed, then the secondary is kind of in a bad position because they're going to miss him for that many games, and then bringing him back, trying to reintegrate him. And if he's not good, the pass rush is there, but I worry that this defense is going to get roasted by some of these teams in the schedule.
All that really means to me is that the Chiefs game is going to be more competitive than the mark. The Chiefs game to be super competitive and high scoring. The Cincy game is going to be super competitive and high scoring. Some of the teams that they're thumping are going to score a bunch of garbage time points on them, like the Jets and the Dolphins. Like that's kind of what I think that makeup is if the secondary doesn't get there. But ultimately,
it's still such a good offense. I mean, you're right.
It's still such a good offense. And if they don't win the Super Bowl, or at least get to the Super Bowl this year, it is because McDermott flubbed his in-game decision-making, and or because Les Frazier had a bad game plan versus somebody had a good offensive game plan, and either they had the ball last, or you couldn't get your fourth down, your final score to beat them. And there's not for as talented as this defense is overall, for as likely as they are to finish in the top 10 of the league because of just the overall talent, there is no Aaron Donald on this defense. There's no TJ Watt on this defense. There's no, there's no game-breaking pass rusher disruptor who, if the other team needs to go 65 yards in 13 seconds to kick the game-tying field goal, they're going to be able to just put your thumb on them, right?
Yeah.
Like
and they did sign Von Miller.
Don't have a stopper.
But yeah, Von Miller is on the wrong side of the aging curve as well.
Yeah, he's perfectly complementary piece to this unit.
Yeah, he will be
perfectly complementary piece. Yeah,
he's a beautiful rotational piece that is going to wreak havoc in certain spots, and he'll make big plays. But he isn't. You're right. He isn't your TJ Watt, your Myles Garrett. He isn't your A1 anymore, and he's a Hall of Famer. Like, I'm not disparaging the guy. He's getting up there in age. He knows he's smart enough to know where he fits in. He fit in great at certain points last year, but it was a good signing. But truthfully, the Bills offseason was kind of weird outside of it's funny. Like, my favorite signing was probably Jamison Crowder and OJ Howard. I love it when teams add
their draft and their free agency were both awesome. Like, awesome. I can't say anything.
The draft were they really? You like the draft?
I like the draft. Absolutely. James Cook looks like a perfect set of legs to add to Singletary.
I like James Cook,
Elam,
but nobody has had a good. True, nobody has had good luck drafting running backs high. Like, it's just not. It goes against what you should be doing in the draft.
Sure.
If it works, it works. And to be fair to this team, it's difficult to evaluate a draft, and not all drafts should be evaluated the same. Like, a shitty team reaching for a running back in the second round looks horrible. Like, when a team doesn't have exactly. When a team doesn't have a lot of needs because they were just deep into the playoffs, the draft is going to look different. I still don't care for going trade. Well, I think they traded up to get their cornerback. And again, that's another problem with the secondary. If he has to take a big lead, and it looks like probably starting right off the bat, rookie corners don't do well. Yeah. And then you took a running back, which is, again, you probably should just never draft a running back until like day 3. Just sign guys that have been cast off, or draft really cheap running backs. And then they used a pick on a punter, which, again, I can kind of defend because I went and looked at the punting stats. That was a weakness. Like, I'm not sure you needed to waste a draft pick on it, but again, they were a team without a ton of needs because they were so good, and they used some draft picks on needs. So I'm going to let it pass, but I wasn't.
Yeah. I also I feel like every mock showed them taking a running back in the first round, and the fact that they didn't take one till the second round, maybe that's shading.
I think that's a pretty low bar.
But you know what I mean? Like, Like, there was a lot of people that thought they were going to take a running back in round 1, and they ended up they waited till round 2, which was responsible. So I think,
I do. It's funny too. Like, I can shit on the James Cook pick all I want, because I'm going to say it till I die. You probably just shouldn't waste draft picks on running backs until you get to day 3 ever. but boy, does he fit in. Like he's a good fit there. Like he's a great complimentary
Yeah,
piece.
he is.
I think
Great
he's going to get a
complimentary piece.
shitload of receiving yards when he gets on the field if it works out
Probably
right.
said that about Clyde Edwards-Helaire too. So point taken.
I did that too. That was, but again,
yeah,
they
I
were in a
know, but
weird
no, I mean,
spot.
I think we would have said that. We would have said that about him at that time if we probably did even. So ultimately, I'm still in the camp of this team should win the AFC on paper, and I guess there's a realistic chance though that like if, and I guess this was going to even sound stupid saying, right? They could be like, I'm almost worried about them being too good offensively during the regular season to the point where every team in the AFC knows when they're game planning, like, okay, we got to score 40, right? Like if that's clear and obvious come playoffs and people have been thinking, and the guys you're up against that are kind of equally talented or close to as talented in the AFC, if they're spending all of December and January literally just can't sleep at night dreaming about or thinking about ways that they're going to attack this defense and score 40 on you, then you could lose a 40-33 type of AFC championship game. Entirely possible to see that. But is if they have home field advantage, and we have yet to see a quarterback go into Buffalo and perform in the playoffs. It has been tough sledding. The closest example you could give is probably Phillip Rivers and the Colts, I guess, 2 years ago, right? They did okay up there, but that wasn't during the day. That wasn't a night game. Lamar Jackson couldn't do it. Mac Jones couldn't do it. I'm dying to see Pat Mahomes take the crew up to Orchard Park for a primetime game for the AFC title game this year. See if he can do it.
Are you concerned at all as the point we just made? Because I don't think we can sit and laud them and praise them. I'm not here to praise them. I'm here to bury. I'm not here to bury them either. Like the AFC is tough. Do you think that the bigger hurdle is winning the AFC? And like, I'm not saying like, oh, they'll get to the Super Bowl and it's the 95 Niners where they're 14-point favorites, but like, is grinding through this schedule and then winning the AFC title like the ultimate? Oh my God, we did it! Now we just have to win the Super Bowl as like a 4-point favorite.
The thing is that like beating this team in playoff mode is going to be very, very tough, even if they're having a bad day, because they can stop the run effectively and you give this offense enough chances and they're going to really eventually the dam is going to break. I don't see enough talented teams in the NFC to really be scared about any defense effectively stopping them enough times or any offense being able to play keep away that I would be worried about their Super Bowl chances if they get there. But no, if they peak too early, if they're, they put all their good plays on film in the regular season, if, the other innovative offensive minds in the league all realize pretty clearly that this is the team to beat and think about and come up with craft ways to do so, then the playoffs are going to be interesting. I don't think this is a runaway by any stretch of the imagination. I think it's going to be a very hard-fought playoffs, particularly because I think, in general, the defense can be had by an elite offense.
Let's take a look at what they have to put up with this season. And it does kind of start tough, like I mentioned. Not only that, but a little bit disadvantageous from a travel rest, what have you there. It's kind of lopsided too. I mean, there's a little spot late where they're at a minor travel disadvantage heading to Chicago off that game where they should have a big advantage versus Miami. And granted, it's not the worst thing. You're facing Chicago late in the year where they're probably out of it. So that doesn't hurt as much. And there are, from the bye on, looks like there's 4 or 5 advantage spots for the travel, including a major one versus a divisional foe with Miami. And there's a bunch of games. I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games after their bye where they're a touchdown favorite or better. There's two previous. So you got 8 games where you're a touchdown favorite right now in the look ahead. And then, several more where it's 6, 6.5. 4.
Cleveland market probably
Green.
changes if Watson's in.
Yeah, the Cleveland market, do you think that's a middle point? Like that's
probably.
I don't know if I'd go full middle point on a week 11 game. Like if it were week 6, I would. I'd go like
I don't even know if
25.
anyone will take. I don't even know. I should just take all the Cleveland ones off the board because I don't know if anyone will really take a bet on that anyway.
It's funny too, yeah. Like there's 31 regular season win totals up in every book. Has been for a month. Like you can't bet on Cleveland games right now. So no, I mean you're right. That probably shifts down to like a 6, and still they're favored in a shitload of games. They're going to be good if they can get rid of some of that inconsistency. We see the offense click. Dorsey, osmosis did enough from our guy before he left. Yeah, I don't see how this team doesn't win 12, 13 games. It's not that bad of a schedule.
Yeah. All of the tests are early. Win or lose, you don't really care. You're just kind of getting you're trying to, you're getting some extended preseason. Don't know what your motivation is opening night when the Rams are hanging the banner. We've seen teams start to kind of really road teams really show up for that lately. So that might be an interesting, more challenging than it looks on paper. That Baltimore game is going to be good. Very, very excited to see if Baltimore has figured out a way to attack the Les Frazier defense better than they did last time we saw them go head-to-head, which was not impressive. Similarly, that KC game, week 6, is your best game in the entire NFL schedule. Monday Night Football finale, Buffalo at Cincy. Doubt that's a pick 'em when we get there, but boy, is that going to be good. They can hurt you. They're going to be presumably tuning up for a playoff run again. Not, same week that they did it to KC last year. Yeah, very, very fun spot there. I like that they have travel advantage for the back half of the season generally. Like this team should be body rested for the playoffs. Yeah, a team like the Bills and what they're trying to accomplish this year, having a front-loaded schedule in terms of challenging opponents, rest disadvantage, travel disadvantage, situational spots. Love that. Love it. Best case scenario, keep your power numbers fixed firmly. Hope they lose a couple coin flips, and then hope they turn on the afterburners out of the bye.
Fair.
We get to see them on Thanksgiving against the mighty Lions.
I'm still a little worried that I'm going to be downgrading them early, and I don't think it's going to be like a spot where I'm downgrading them and I'm just going to straight up bet against them.
There are two steps.
I'm treating them as
you adjust them.
I can't bet on this team.
Right.
Yet.
If you adjust them, the question is, are you adjusting them faster than the market? And if you are, and you see an edge, are you actually pulling the trigger? And it sounds like you're going to pass.
It'll depend. I mean, again, everything is 2 to tango. So much of this depends on the other teams. Like, it might be, hey, I downgraded this team, but I also just downgraded their opponent. Like that's if I'm ahead of the market on both teams, what am I doing there? I have to pass in that game.
Let's say they lose. Let's say they lose to the Rams and the Ravens. Let's say that the Dolphins give them an absolute test, push them to the limit. Titans push them to the limit, and then they destroy the Steelers. They are 3-2. You've downgraded them a point and change. They are taking on the Chiefs, who have looked amazing. And that game is around is under 3. It's Chiefs minus 2.5 at the market. Are you laying the 2.5 on the Chiefs?
Again, a lot of it probably depends on multiple things based on positional groups and how they've performed in my game grades. Like if it's because the Buffalo secondary has just stunk and they got burnt. Like if Lamar Jackson looks like Bart Starr against that. Boy, that was bad in that. Like
Yeah, it's tough for me
using
to
a
envision that
quarterback
'cause
from like
see,
100
it's
years ago.
it's tough
Boy,
for me to visualize that because I had never seen Bart Starr play.
if he looks like Sammy Baugh out there.
Okay.
No, I mean if Lamar
Okay.
Jackson looks like Aaron Rodgers against that secondary, then and Kansas City is seemingly just fine without Tyreek, and you
Mhm.
give me 2.5 there, like, yeah, I'm firing that. That should be three,
Okay.
3.5. So, I mean,
Okay.
there will be bet against, but again, it depends on like when you do these downgrades, you still have to put the context of the games. Like, why is this team where they're at in your power rankings? And if all their weaknesses that you've downgraded them for don't align with the other team's strengths, if it's weakness on weakness, you don't think you see an advantage despite having a little bit of an advantage against the market, it's still probably a stay away spot. But again, a strength of Kansas City is probably going to be the passing game because they have a decent quarterback. And if this secondary is getting roasted by everybody and their sister for 4 weeks, and it's on Josh Allen's shoulders every week to try to keep up with this defense that like the pass rush isn't getting there because they're just throwing it. Everyone's decided like, well, the secondary sucks, the pass rush is good, we're going to throw it quick, and everyone looks good. Then yeah, I'll take the Chiefs there.
I like it. All right. Well, to put a bow on it. Oh no,
Yeah,
we'll
let's
go
take
to
a look at the
Let's go to
odds. Would you? I don't know. Let's just, if you had to bet one Super Bowl, I don't bet that many Super Bowl odds before the season.
No,
In fact,
no,
rarely
not
do I
well.
take a Super Bowl bet before the season, almost always during the season. Is there a situation where it's just a tough schedule and Ken Dorsey's getting his feet wet and he's got to figure things out? And I know with, how time, time decay works, like losing those games isn't the same as losing the games in the middle of the season or late in the season. You're not going to see like the Bills 10-1 just because they struggle a little. It's not going to fly. But I mean, what if it got up to 8-1 and you think it's just growing pains? There's a case to be made for taking some Bills to win the Super Bowl if they struggle. And if they don't, we can regret not taking the plus 650, I guess, because it'll be lower. But I'm not taking that chance on a really short number on it's a very hard thing to do to win the goddamn Super Bowl. It's single elimination in the playoffs. I don't know if you heard. So
Oh yeah.
if I had to take a bet on this team, like that minus 185, what should that really be? Like, what is your actual percentage that the Bills win the AFC East? Because it
It's
should
higher
probably
than that,
start
but
with
not enough. Yeah,
it should
does.
start with a 2.
Yeah, I'm in like the 260 range, so it's not
It's
enough to really lose like sleep over. Sure, certainly.
and that's the
And
thing too.
also,
Like you
yeah,
you want to put that money away from you bet it right now. You're talking like 5 months. It's not
all of
something
these
I'm excited to
prices,
put away for 5 months.
all of these prices reflect a team that is at the top of their range starting the season, which means the only bet you're going to make that's going to gain equity on this team is going to be the Super Bowl. And the only way you gain equity on that bet is if they come out of the gate hot and they beat the likes of the Rams, Ravens, and Chiefs all early. Then this number moves down, right? You know what is another good way to make money on that? Is to bet
Bet on
them
that team
against
to win
those
those
teams.
games.
Yeah,
You get
bet
that
on
money.
them to win those games.
You get that money a
Exactly.
lot faster.
You get that money a lot faster, and you don't have to figure out how to get your equity up. There is a realistic chance the Bills drop a couple of those for whatever reason. And as we talked about, Miami has the potential to start warm. And I think that is worth keeping an eye on that AFC East price. Because
Yeah,
even
if
if
that
the
AFC East price got
Bills,
close to minus 125,
if
boy,
it gets close to even, that is a bombs away.
that's a
Here's my
drone.
other betting plan of attack that I'd like your thoughts on. We've spitballed the idea of that playoff loss was rough. And if the Bills come out this year, if the Bills come out this year in the regular season and they're in fuck you mode, and they are just skull fucking teams, even teams that should be competitive, like the Rams, Ravens, and Chiefs.
Or Everton.
then the path to them getting the 1 seed all of a sudden is really, 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 really solid.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say about a Bills team that is coming into the season expected to be the best and gets the 1 seed? What does that generally end up in as a regular season way to make money?
Again, I'm not quite sure you phrased the question where it hit my brain right. Like, are we
So
betting
we have
against them late?
no. So we have
Because
a
they've locked
Bills.
up. Okay.
No, we have a Bills team that has an elite quarterback,
Yep.
and that
Oh, yeah, it's
that
MVP.
if MVP,
Yeah, I gotcha.
Josh Allen MVP. I mean, at that, like, what, like, you really, like, if you're counting on this team with a soft schedule, bunch of rest advantages, real soft, squishy middle, to go and get the 1 seed, then, I mean, if the Bills get the 1 seed, what are the chances that Allen gets the MVP?
And it does feel like the
Really,
league
really
is
fucking
just
high.
the league is just dying to give him one. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't want to make, because it's not a really exact comp, but boy, it's like the Curry thing. Like,
Surely.
God, they wanted to give the finals MVP to Curry badly. Everybody knew it. The price reflected it. Same kind of, like, it's not a great price, but yeah, if you think you're basically betting an alt over with Josh Allen MVP. You're betting this team
Yes.
over 12.5, over 13,
Yes.
kind of in that range. Like,
Exactly.
if they win 13, 14 games, the odds of him not getting the MVP are low. It's based on somebody doing something obscene on another team, or just I don't. There's not a path for this team to win 13 or 14 or more games where he isn't great. Not good, great. So yeah, if you want to bet an alt over on this team, I would consider putting some money on that MVP at 5-1 instead too.
It's down to 5-1, really? Even if you shop around?
I'm going to shop a little. I've just opened up one book.
I think I bet it pretty aggressively when it was about 750, when it was higher than their Super Bowl odds. Because again, like, the Super Bowl, I feel like, well, no, I think the Super Bowl is more fragile for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, no, you win it. You win MVP without winning the Super Bowl quite a bit.
Oh yeah. In fact, if they win, there's not a lot of examples of guys winning the MVP and then winning the Super Bowl. That's sort of the exception. So yeah, like you have to play a lot tougher teams in the playoffs than the Bills currently have on their schedule, and you got to play them at a time of the year where they're prepared for you. Oh, you found a 7-1? Yeah, it's 7. So I will advocate for that with a clean conscience. Josh Allen 7-1 MVP is a fun way to bet the Bills if you believe that they have as much upside as we are spelling out. But I'm not pinning my hopes to that as like a sure thing, because I think the right call for the Bills is to play it a little bit slowly and to try to build into their season and not to put all the good plays on tape in the months of September, October, November, and to keep Josh Allen healthy and to let their defense, let some of the young players, let some of the guys coming back from injury kind of get their feet under them. And I won't be upset if they lose like a 6-9 game to the Jaguars this year. Like, that's
when do they do MVP? Is that during the Super Bowl, like after the Super Bowl again, or no? They do it. Do they do it during the bye week?
It's the week of.
Yeah. So like, I'm just
the
gonna
week
put
of
February
the Super Bowl.
1.
Yeah, there you go.
In all the futures I keep track of, I do a settle date so I can sort them, so I can put the old ones in a spot where I don't see
They have
them.
like a big thing in LA. They had a big thing in LA during the week of the Super Bowl this last year.
Yeah, I guess on these. I'm gonna call it 2-1-23 for this one.
Cool.
See if I can parlay it with Hutch.
Again, like,
this team. Can you parlay awards?
Ooh, I don't know. This team should be the favorite to win the Super Bowl. I think rightfully they're the favorite. They have the best playoff offense of any team in the NFL, in my opinion. Like, the way that their offense is specifically tailored for cold weather football and the type of opponents you face in the playoffs. I love their offense for that in particular. And yeah, I think this is a Super Bowl or bust year, and a healthy year. I think we see them get it done. So, what would be crazy about that? And here's a little trivia for you. I haven't looked up the answer, so you may know better than I know. Has a player ever won 3 Super Bowl rings with 3 different teams? Only 3, but 3 different teams. Because that would be the situation Von Miller would find himself in.
I feel like there was somebody in the 90s that did it with the Cowboys and the Niners.
That's only 2.
And then ended up somewhere else, like a Packers or Broncos team later on. I'm going to both Google this live in the air.
List of players who have won the Super Bowl with multiple teams. I don't know if there's anyone who has 3. A lot of 2s out there.
Making the Super Bowl with 3 different teams is a thing. Rod Woodson made it with Pittsburgh, Baltimore, and the Raiders. Bill Romanowski did it on that same Raiders team. That was such a weird Raiders team. But so Roman and that Raiders team in 2002, was that the year they won, or did the team lose?
They lost to the Buccaneers.
Tampa. That was the one they lost to Tampa. So he won with the Niners in the 80s. Jesus, that guy played for a while. Then he won one with Elway. Then he lost on that Raiders team.
There's one player.
There's
a single player, Matt Millen. Yeah.
Raiders.
He's the only guy.
He won with John Madden, Bill Walsh, and Joe Gibbs. Holy shit.
Matt Millen.
Talk about
wow.
hitching your wagon to some stars.
If you have that much if you have that much close contact with that many geniuses, you'd probably be good in the front office.
Great GM. Boy,
somebody should kick the tires up. Kick the tires on Matt Millen for GM, I guess. Right?
I like how our mind went to the same place. We should make fun of him for sucking so bad in Detroit. So all right, let's call it a podcast. Let's call it a week. We'll be back next week with I'll just tell you, the NFC East. Yes. This is going to be a very fun one too. I've seen
we're gonna set ratings, new ratings highs,
wildly varying opinions from some smart people as far as who wins this division. I think I've seen 3 different teams atop some predictions from some people I trust. So it'll be interesting to see what we haven't really talked about this between us. I don't know who you have as your highest rated team. I think there's a lot of varying opinions, and this can be a fun one for sure. So catch you next Monday and Wednesday. It'll be Cowboys and Eagles are the 2 good teams according to the market.
Yeah.
We'll have them on Wednesday, and it'll be G-Man, Big Blue, plus the Washington Commodores or whatever on Monday. See you then.
All I know is it's not going to be the Cowboys because no team wins the NFC East 2 years in a row.
That's just not a thing. It's so hard to do.
Yeah. Can't be done.
I learned his name is Saquon. Pat Millen. That's hilarious.